If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing stories that touch the heart and remind us we're not alone. I never thought that the young man who came to my door to install a simple coffee maker would leave behind something far more powerful than a working machine. I never imagined that an ordinary morning, quiet, predictable, and almost painfully routine, would quietly become the beginning of something I didn't even know I needed. Sometimes life doesn't knock loudly before it changes you. Sometimes it walks in softly, carrying a cardboard box and offering to help. I'm 60 years old. For the past 15 years, ever since my divorce, I've lived alone. That sentence sounds simple, clean, matter of fact. But what it really means is this: 15 years of eating dinner across from an empty chair. 15 years of sleeping on one side of the bed. 15 years of speaking out loud sometimes just to hear a human voice, even if it's my own. My life isn't dramatic. It isn't tragic. It's just quiet. And quiet, when stretched over years, can become heavy. That morning began like hundreds before it. The kettle hummed in the kitchen. The morning news flickered across the television screen. Faces talking about events that felt far removed from my small living room. Sunlight filtered through the curtains in thin, golden lines that revealed the floating dust in the air. I watched it drift and thought how strange it was that even dust seemed to have somewhere to go. I stood in my kitchen staring at my old coffee maker. It had been sputtering for weeks. Every morning it sounded like it was struggling, like it too was tired. In a way, I think I kept it around longer than I should have because I understood it. But that morning, I decided to replace it. Not because it was broken beyond repair, but because I needed something new, something different. Even if it was small. I didn't know I was craving change. I just knew I was tired of everything feeling the same. The store was busy in that low, weekday morning way. People moving with purpose but without urgency. I picked out a modest coffee maker. Nothing fancy. I didn't need bells and whistles. I just wanted something reliable. When the young employee offered to carry it to my car and help set it up at home, I hesitated. I'm not used to accepting help. When you live alone long enough, you learn to do everything yourself. You carry your own groceries. You fix your own leaks. You open your own jars. You swallow your own sadness. But he smiled and said, "It's no trouble at all." And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I said yes. His name was Jake. He was 23. When he stepped into my house, I noticed something immediately. The air felt different. It's hard to explain. The walls had held silence for so long that the sound of another person's footsteps felt almost foreign. His presence brought movement into a space that had grown used to stillness. He wasn't loud. He wasn't intrusive. He moved respectfully, carefully placing the box on the kitchen counter. But he carried something intangible with him. Youth maybe. Or possibility. He glanced around, not in judgment, but in curiosity. "Do you live alone?" he asked gently. The question was simple, casual, but it landed somewhere deeper than I expected. "Yes," I said. He nodded, not awkwardly, not pitying, just understanding. And that's when I realized something. He wasn't just making conversation. He recognized something in the quiet of my home. Maybe because he knew that quiet too. At first, our conversation was surface level. Where he was from. How long he'd been working at the store. Whether I preferred strong coffee or mild. But conversations have a way of deepening when two people are honest without trying too hard. He told me he had recently moved to the city, that it was harder than he expected, that even in a place full of millions, loneliness could still sneak up on you. "It's strange," he said while connecting the machine to the outlet. "You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible." That word, invisible. It felt like he had reached into my chest and pulled out something I hadn't said out loud in years. I had spent so long feeling unseen. After my divorce, friends chose sides. Invitations slowed. Phone calls became holidays only. People assume that once you reach a certain age, your life has already happened. As if there are no new chapters left to write. As if you've become background scenery in everyone else's story. I told him that starting over at 45 felt like being dropped into the middle of a book with no idea how to continue the plot. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer empty reassurances. He just listened. And sometimes that's more powerful than advice. At one point, he paused and looked at me. Not past me, not through me, but at me. You know, he said softly, some people just feel like home, even if you've only known them for a few minutes. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't romance. It was recognition. Two human beings separated by nearly 4 decades of life experience, finding common ground in something timeless. The need to be understood. In that moment, I didn't feel 60. I didn't feel divorced. I didn't feel alone. I felt human. When the machine finally sputtered to life, this time smooth and steady, we stood in the kitchen waiting for the coffee to brew. The aroma filled the air, rich and warm. I hadn't realized how much I missed the simple pleasure of anticipation. Waiting for something good. We poured 2 cups. We stood at my small kitchen table. The same table that had held years of solitary meals. And for the first time in a very long while, it didn't feel like a monument to absence. It felt like a place. We talked about life moving too fast. About how people drift apart not always because of anger, but because of neglect. About how sometimes the hardest part of growing older is not the physical changes, but the shrinking of your world. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. Safe. Alive. When he finished and gathered his things, I felt a subtle shift inside me. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Just lighter. Thank you, I told him. You did more than set up a coffee maker today. He smiled, unsure how to respond. But his eyes said he understood. After he left, I sat alone again. The house returned to stillness. The door closed. The echo of footsteps faded. But something had changed. The silence no longer felt oppressive. It felt reflective. There's a difference. Loneliness is a strange teacher. It sharpens your awareness. It makes you notice small kindnesses. A stranger holding a door. A cashier remembering your name. A young man taking 10 extra minutes to talk about life while setting up an appliance. When you've been alone long enough, you don't crave grand gestures. You crave acknowledgement. And that morning I felt acknowledged. Seen. Not as a 60-year-old woman whose story was basically finished, but as someone still capable of connection. Still capable of warmth. Still capable of hope. As the sun began to set that evening, I walked into the kitchen and looked at the coffee maker sitting neatly on the counter. It looked ordinary, but it felt symbolic. It wasn't just a new appliance. It was proof that something in my life could still change. That new energy could still enter my space. That I wasn't as invisible as I had quietly convinced myself I was. I don't know if I'll ever see Jake again. Maybe he was only meant to pass through my life for an hour. Maybe he was simply a reminder. Sometimes people arrive not to stay, but to awaken something. That night, lying in bed, I thought about how easily we dismiss small moments. We wait for fireworks. For dramatic love stories. For life-altering events. But sometimes change happens in kitchens. Over coffee. Between 2 people brave enough to speak honestly. That morning didn't rewrite my entire life. But it reopened something. And at 60 that matters. Hope doesn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispers. If you've ever met someone who appeared in your life at exactly the right moment, even briefly, you understand. Some connections don't require years. They require presence. They require sincerity. They require one honest conversation. One kind smile. One shared cup of coffee. And maybe that's enough. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need a reminder that it's never too late for life to surprise you. Because sometimes, the person who knocks on your door isn't just delivering a package. They're delivering possibility.